Leviticus 24. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Order Bnei Yisrael to bring you to pure olive oil, beaten for the light, to keep a lamp burning continually, outside of the curtain of the testimony, in the tent of meeting. Aaron is to keep it in order from evening to morning before Adonai continually. It is to be a statute forever through your generations. He is to keep the lamps in order and the pure golden menorah before Adonai continually. Also, you are to take fine flour and bake 12 cakes of it, with 2/10 of an ephah of each cake. Then you are to set them in 2 rows, 6 in a row, on the pure gold table before Adonai. Set pure frankincense on each row as a memorial portion for the bread and offering by fire to Adonai. Every Yom Shabbat he is to set it in order before Adonai continually. It is an everlasting covenant on behalf of Bnei Yisrael. It belongs to Aaron and his sons, and they are to eat it in a holy place, for it is most holy to him among the offerings of Adonai by fire, as a perpetual statute. Justice and restitution. Now the son of an Israelite woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among Bnei Yisrael, and a fight broke out between the Israelite woman's son and an Israelite man. The Israelite woman's son blasphemed the name and cursed, so they brought him to Moses. His mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of Dibri, the son of the tribe of Dan. They put him in custody until the will of Adonai could be declared on him. And Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Bring the one who is cursed out of the camp, and let all who heard him lay their hands on his head and have the entire congregation stone him. Then you will speak to Bnei Yisrael, saying, Whoever curses his God will bear his sin. Whoever blasphemes the name of Adonai must surely be put to death. The whole congregation must stone him, the outsider as well as the native born. When he blasphemes the name, is to be put to death. Whoever mortally strikes down any man must surely be put to death. Whoever mortally strikes down an animal is to make restitution, life for life. If anyone injures his neighbor as he has done, the same is to be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he has injured someone, so it shall be done to him. Whoever kills an animal is to make restitution, but the one who kills a man is to be put to death. You are to have one standard of justice for the outsider as well as the native born, for I am Adonai your God. So Moses spoke to Bnei Yisrael, and they came and led the one who had cursed out of the camp and stoned him with rocks. Thus Bnei Yisrael did as Adonai commanded Moses. Leviticus 25, Shabbat year and Jubilee, Parashat Behar. Then Adonai said to Moses on Mount Sinai, Speak to Bnei Yisrael and tell them, When you come into the land which I give you, the land is to keep a Shabbat to Adonai. For 6 years you may sow your field, and for 6 years you may prune your vineyard and gather in its fruits. But in the 7th year there is to be a Shabbat rest for the land, a Shabbat to Adonai. You are not to sow your field or to prune your vineyard. You are not to reap what grows by itself during your harvest, nor gather the grapes of your untended vine. It is to be a year of Shabbat rest for the land. Whatever the Shabbat of the land produces will be food for yourself, for your servant, for your maidservant, for your hired worker, for the outsider dwelling among you, even for your livestock and for the animals that are in your land. All its increase will be enough food. You are to count off 7 Shabbatot of years, 7 times 7, so that the time is 7 Shabbatot of years, 49 years. Then on the 10th day of the 7th month, on Yom Kippur, you are to sound off a shofar blast. You are to sound the shofar all through your land. You are to make the 50th year holy and to proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It is to be a jubilee to you, when each of you is to return to his own property, and each of you is to return to his family. That 50th year will be your jubilee. You are not to sow or reap that which grows by itself, or gather from the untended vine. Since it is Jubilee, it is to be holy to you. You will eat from its increase out of the field. In this year of Jubilee, each of you will turn to its property. If you sell anything to your neighbor, or buy from your neighbor, you are not to wrong one another. Corresponding to the number of years after the Jubilee, you are to repurchase land from your neighbor's hand. He is to sell it to you, based on the number of years of crops. In proportion to the extent of years, you may increase its price or decrease its price in proportion to the fewness of years, because he is a selling number of harvests to you. You are not to cheat one another, but fear your God, for I am Adonai your God. Therefore you are to keep my statutes and observe my ordinances, and carry them out, so that you may live securely in the land. Then the land will yield its fruits, and you may eat your fill and live there in safety. Now if you ask, What are we to eat during the 7th year? If, see, we are not to sow, nor gather in our increase. Now I will command my blessing to you in the 6th year, so that it will yield a harvest sufficient for 3 years. When you sow during the 8th year, you will be eating the old stored harvest until the harvest of the 9th year comes in. Moreover, the land is not to be sold permanently, because the land is mine, for you are sojourners with me. For any land you possess, you are to provide for redemption of the land. If your brother becomes poor and sells some of his property, then his nearest kinsman may come and redeem what his brother has sold. If a man has no kinsman redeemer, but he himself recovers and finds sufficient means to redeem it, and let him reckon the years since its sale and restore up the surplus to the man whom he sold it. Then he will return to his property. But if he is not able to get it back for himself, then what he has sold is to remain in the hand of the one who has bought it until the year of Jubilee. Then in the Jubilee it shall be released, so he may return to his property. If a man sells a house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year after it has been sold. For a full year he has the right of redemption. But if it is not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house that is in the walled city will belong permanently to the one who bought it throughout his generations. It will not be released in the Jubilee, but the houses of the villages that have no wall around them are to be considered as an open country. They have redemption rights and are to be released in the Jubilee. But as for the towns of the Levites may have a permanent right of redemption for the houses in the towns of their possession. The Levites may redeem a house sold in the town of its possession. Also, it shall be released in the Jubilee, for the houses of the Levitical towns are their possessions among Bnei Yisrael. But the fields and the pasture lands of their cities may not be sold, for it is their permanent possession. If your brother has become poor and his hand cannot support himself among you, then you are to uphold him. He may live with you like an outsider or a temporary resident. Take no excessive interest from him, but fear your God, so that your brother can live with you. You are not to lend him your money at interest, nor give him your food for profit. I am Adonai your God, who brought you forth out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan and to be your God. If your brother has grown poor among you and sells himself to you, you must not subject him to slave labor. Let him stay with you as a hired worker or as a temporary resident. He will work for you until the year of Jubilee, then he is to be released from you, he and his children with him, and may return to his own family and to the property of his fathers. For they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They are not to be sold in a slave sale. You are not to rule over him with harshness, but fear your God. As for your male and female slaves, whom you may acquire out of the nations that are around you, from them you may buy male and female slaves. You may also acquire from the children, among the children of the foreigners dwelling among you, as well as from their families who are with you, those born in your land. They may also become your property. You may also leave them in inheritance for your children after you to receive as a possession. These may become your slaves permanently, but over your brothers, Bnei Yisrael, you must not rule over one another with harshness. If an outsider or sojourner with you becomes rich, while your brother beside him has become poor and sells himself to the outsider dwelling among you, or to a member of the outsider's family after he is sold, he may be redeemed. One of his brothers may redeem him, or his uncle's sons may redeem him, or anyone who is a close relative to him from his family may also redeem him. Or if he has grown rich, he may redeem himself. He is to calculate with the one who bought him from the year that he sold himself to the year of Jubilee, and to the price of his sale will be in proportion to the number of years. Like the days of a hired worker, it will be with him. If there are still many years in proportion to those, he is to reimburse the price of his redemption from his purchase price. If there are to remain only a few years until the year of Jubilee, then he shall calculate with him in proportion to his year of service, as he is to reimburse the price of his redemption. He will stay with him as a hired worker year by year, but he is not to rule with harshness over him in your sight. Even if he is not redeemed by the means, then he will be released in the year of Jubilee, and he and his children with him. For Bnei Yisrael are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. Chapter 26. You are not to make idols for yourselves, nor raise up an engraved image or a standing stone, or place any carved stone in your land to bow down to it. For I am Adonai your God. You are to keep my Shabbatot and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am Adonai. Bereshat Bekokoteh. Faithfulness ensures blessings. If you walk in my statutes, keep my mitzvot, and carry them out, then I will give you rains in their season. The land will yield its crops, and the trees of the field will yield their fruit. Your threshing will last until grape gathering. The grape gathering will last until the sowing time. You will eat your bread to the full and live securely in your land. I will bring shalom in the land, and you will lie down with no one making you afraid. I will remove dangerous beasts from the land, and no sword will pass through your hand. You will chase your enemies, and they will fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000, and your enemies will fall by the sword before you. I will turn toward you, make you fruitful, and multiply you, and I will confirm my covenant with you. You will eat the old harvest and clear out the old because of the new. I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul will not abhor you. I will walk among you, and I will be your God, and you will be my people. I am Adonai your God, who brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, so that you would not be their slaves, and I have broken the bars of your yoke and made you walk upright. Faithfulness ensures misery. But if you will not listen to me, nor carry out all these mitzvot, and if you reject my statutes, and if your soul abhors my ordinances, so that you do not keep all my mitzvot, but instead break my covenant, then I will do the following to you in return. I will appoint terror over you, wasting disease and fever that will dim the eyes and cause the soul to pine away. You will sow your seed in vain, because your enemies will eat it. I will set my face against you, and you will be rooted before your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you, and those you will flee when no one pursues you. If you, in spite of these things, will not listen to me, then I will chastise you 7 times more for your sins. I will break your pride of power. I will make your sky like iron, and your earth like bronze. Also your strength will be spent in vain, nor for your land will not yield its increase, nor will the trees of the land yield their fruit. If you keep walking contrary to me and will not listen to me, then I will multiply the plagues on you 7 times like your sins. I will send the wild animals among you, which will rob you of your children, destroy your livestock, and make you so few in number that your roads will become deserted. Now if in spite of these things you will not be chastened by me, but walk in contrary to me, instead, then I will also walk contrary to you. Then I will strike you, I myself, 7 times for your sins. I will bring a sword upon you that will execute the vengeance of the covenant, and you will be gathered together inside your cities. I will send the pestilence among you, and you will be given into the hand of the enemy. When I break your staff of bread, 10 women will bake your bread in one oven, and they will bring back your bread by weight, so that you will eat but not be satisfied. Yet if in spite of this you will not listen to me, but walk contrary to me, then I will walk contrary to you in wrath, so I will chastise you 7 times for your sins. You will eat the flesh of your sons, and you will eat the flesh of your daughters. I will destroy your high places and cut down your altars of incense. Cast your dead bodies upon the bodies of your idols, and my soul will abhor you. I will lay waste to your cities and devastate your sanctuaries. I will not smell your soothing aromas. I will make the land desolate, and your enemies settling there will be astonished at it. I will scatter you among the nations, and I will draw out the sword after you. So your land will become a desolation, and your cities will become a waste, and the land will enjoy its Shabbatot all the days of its desolation, while you are in the land of your enemies. Then the land will restore and enjoy its Shabbatot. As long as it lies desolate, it will have rest, that rest which it did not have from your Shabbatot when you lived on it. As for those who remain, I will bring weakness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, so that the sound of a driven leaf will put them to flight, and they will flee as one flees from the sword and fall. Even when no one is pursuing, they will stumble over one another, and as if before the sword when no one pursues, and you will have no strength to stand before your enemies. You will perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies will devour you. Those of you who are left in the land of your enemies will rot away because of their iniquity, and because of the iniquities of their fathers, they will rot away with them. Adonai remembers his own. But if they confess their iniquity and that of their fathers, and the treachery they committed against me, and how they walked contrary to me, in return I walked contrary to them, and brought them into the land of their enemies, and if at that time their uncircumcised heart becomes humbled, so that they accept the punishment for their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land, but the land will be deserted by them, and will enjoy its Shabbatot while it lies desolate without them. And they will accept the punishment of their iniquity, because they rejected my ordinances, and their soul abhorred my statutes. Yet for all that, when they are in the land of the enemies, I will not reject them, nor will I take them into the utter destruction, and break my covenant with them, for I am Adonai their God. But for their sake I will remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be their God. I am Adonai. These are the statutes, ordinances, and laws, which Adonai made between himself and Bnei Yisrael at Mount Sinai by Moses. Chapter 27. Divine appraisals. Then Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Bnei Yisrael and say to them, when anyone who makes a special vow to Adonai involving the valuation of persons, then your valuation of a male from 20 years old to 6 years old shall be 50 shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary. If it is a female, then your valuation shall be 30 shekels. If a person is from 5 years to 20 years old, then your valuation is to be 20 shekels for a male and 10 shekels for a female. If a person is from 1 month to 5 years old, then your valuation is to be 5 shekels of silver for a male and 3 shekels of silver for a female. If the person is 60 years old and upward, if it is a male, then your valuation is to be 15 shekels, and for a female 10 shekels. But if he is poorer than your valuation, then he is to be set before the Kohen, and the Kohen will set a value for him in keeping with that the one who made the vow can afford. If it is an animal that may be brought as an offering to Adonai, anything that gives to Adonai, will be holy. He is not to replace it or exchange it, either good or bad for good. But if he does exchange one animal for another, then both it and the one for which it is exchanged will become holy. If it is any sort of unclean animal that may not be brought as an offering to Adonai, then he is to set that animal before the Kohen. The Kohen is to evaluate it, whether it is good or bad. As the Kohen values it, so it will be. But if he would redeem it, then he is to add a fifth to its valuation. If a man consecrates his house as holy to Adonai, then the Kohen is to evaluate it, whether it is good or bad. As the Kohen evaluates it, so it will stand. If the one who dedicates it would redeem his own house, then he is to add a fifth of the money of your valuation to it, and it will become his. If one consecrates to Adonai part of the field of his possession, then your valuation is to be proportioned to the seed to sow in it. An omer of barley at 50 shekels of silver. If he dedicates his field from the year of Jubilee, it will stand according to your own valuation. But if he dedicates his field after the Jubilee, then the Kohen is to calculate for him the money according to the years that remain until the year of Jubilee, with a deduction to be made from your valuation. If he who dedicated the field would ever redeem it, then he is to add a fifth of the money of your valuation to it, and it will remain his. But he will not redeem the field, or if he has sold the field to someone else, it may not be redeemed anymore. But the field, when it is released to the Jubilee, will be holy to Adonai as a consecrated field. It will be owned by the Kohanim. Now if one consecrates to Adonai a field that he has bought, which is not from the fields of his possession, then the Kohen is to calculate for him the worth of your valuation up to the year of Jubilee, and give your valuation on that day as a holy thing to Adonai. In the year of Jubilee, the field is to return to the one from whom it was bought, to the one to whom the possession of the land belongs. All your valuation shall be according to the shekel of the sanctuary, 20 gerahs to the shekel. But the firstborn among the animals, which is made a firstborn to Adonai, may not be dedicated by anyone, whether an ox or sheep. It belongs to Adonai. If it is an unclean animal, then he is to buy it back according to your valuation and add a fifth of the value to it. But if it is not redeemed, then it is to be sold according to your valuation. Nevertheless, no devoted thing which a man sets apart from all that he has for Adonai, whether man or animal or from the field of his possession, may be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing is most holy to Adonai. No one who may be set apart from men for destruction is to be ransomed. He is surely to be put to death. All the tithe of the land, whether from the seed of the land or from the fruits of the trees, belongs to Adonai, for it is holy to Adonai. If a man redeems anything of his tithe, he must add a fifth part to it. From all the tithe of the herds or the flocks, whatever passes under the rod, a tenth will be holy to Adonai. One is not to inquire if it is good or bad, nor exchange it, or if he does exchange it, then both and that for which it is exchanged will become holy, and may not be redeemed. These are the mitzvot which Adonai commanded Moses for B'nai Yisrael on Mount Sinai.